Listen. Do you hear that? It's the sound of Ollie Davis literally counting his Khan coin. Yes, it's no secret that we do love a bit of AEW here at WrestleTalk and partsFUNknown, but not everything Tony Khan has touched has turned into gold. AEW has had its fair share of missed opportunities, and to balance the cosmic scales, we're going to talk about them right now. It's important to keep in mind that some of these can be rectified with some future booking, but seeing as I've loaned Pete my only good crystal ball for some D&D thing, the big nerd, we can only go off what's already happened. I'm a level 10 monk, by the way. But if Tony Khan does remedy any of these, then future Luke will be happy to be wrong. I am current day Luke Owen, hailing from partsFUNknown though, and these are the 10 biggest missed opportunities in AEW so far. Don't miss your opportunity to subscribe to partsFUNknown right now. Go on, press the button. Do it, you coward, do it! Honourable mention, the exploding barbed wire deathmatch. Look, this is a missed opportunity to create a moment that would have legit lived in the annals of AEW and wrestling history. A moment that fans could talk of with reverence to younger fans in years to come and say, oh, you should have been there to see the ring explode while Jon Moxley was comforted by his best friend and former foe Eddie Kingston in such a beautiful, gorgeous moment. But what we actually had was... Number 10, not immediately giving Keith Lee a main event push. I mean, it's only Keith Lee, innit? The love for this man runs company-wide here, and we will continue to beat that drum all day and night. Keith Lee on top more, Keith Lee all the time. Not many AEW debuts have rocketed to the top of the card immediately. Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole coming in at the same time really was a shock to the system, and few have matched their trajectory. It's much more common for a debut to be like Miro's, Andrade's, Jay Lethal's, or in the case of Keith Lee, where they just make an impressive debut, which in this case was Keith Lee's wonderful display of wrestling perfection as he yeeted Isaiah Cassidy across the ring, and then they settle into their spot in the mid-card. Granted, Keith only did debut 3 months ago, and it looks like he may win the tag titles very soon, so let's not hit the panic button so soon. Oh, sod it, let's press the panic button. It's Keith Lee! Put every belt on him! He's Keith Lee! I guess we should probably put Andrade Idolo in this position too, as his AEW run so far has been, terrible? Number 9, no follow-up to Shaquille O'Neal. There are few who would have guessed that NBA legend, constant meme generator, and all-round swell fellow Shaquille O'Neal would pull off such a good performance as he did when he teamed with Jade Cargill on Dynamite. Celebrity matches are a bit hit and miss, and yeah, there's a lot of misses, but this one was stellar. Shaq wouldn't have been the worst giant in WWE by any stretch with performance like this, which makes it all the more disappointing that we never got a follow-up to his appearance. And they actually set up a cliffhanger and everything, because Cody Rhodes put Shaq through 2 tables and he needed to be taken away in an ambulance, but when they checked that ambulance, Shaq had vanished. Le shock! The wounded Shaq limped off into the night and has yet to return to an AEW ring. I suppose in AEW canon, Shaq is just out there somewhere in the woods, just a weird way to write off a character. Shaq did say that he was going to return to AEW that summer, but that never happened. Even if there isn't another match, I would like to know where Shaq went. It's a loose thread that I need to have tied up. Number 8, the split of SCU being rushed and mostly off TV. To be clear, we could get some major advancements in the Chronicles of SoCal Uncensored in the coming weeks with Scorpio Sky's potential rivalry with Frankie Kazarian, but holy pretty much the moment SCU lost the tag titles to Kenny and Hangman, they ceased to be important whatsoever on AEW's main television programs. These were your first ever tag team champions. You beat the Lucha Bros to give them this accolade when we all know it should have been Pentagon. And this was felt most heavily in the group splits. One of wrestling's longest tenure teams agrees that if they lose another match and don't win the tag team titles, they will split up forever. It sounds like a pretty awesome, emotional story. Too bad in this case it wasn't on TV, and I will not accept the argument of just watch Dark and Dark Elevation, because the numbers don't lie and they spell disaster for your argument. A small portion of AEW's audience watches all 4 AEW shows, so it's unfair for TK and you lot to expect 100% of his audience to be up to date with all the ins and outs of those shows, especially as there are very rarely recaps of Dark and Dark Elevation on Dynamite and Rampage. Plus, a story of this magnitude should be playing out on AEW's biggest stage, and Kazarian and Christopher Daniels didn't get a win on TV during this winning streak until the week before their final match with the Young Bucks. Great match in its own right, but also disappointing in that AEW did a TNA and immediately cut to the back rather than hold on the emotional crescendo. Number 7, Santana and Ortiz versus the Lucha Bros. Another one that can be fixed in the future, but in the present, I'm an impatient man and I can't believe that in 3 years of AEW, we have not gotten the follow-up to one of the greatest Impact tag rivalries ever, LAX versus the Lucha Bros. When the Luchas won the tag team titles at All Out 2021, they began having interactions with Santana and Ortiz that would lead one to believe that that would be an eventual match where Penta and Phoenix could feasibly drop the tag titles to them. And then the match didn't happen, and the Lucha Bros instead lost the titles to Jurassic Express and turned their attention to the House of Black, which feels like it's been going on for 2 years now, while Santana and Ortiz were just dragged back into some Chris Jericho nonsense against America Top Team for a celebrity match. This is a match that simply must happen at a major AEW stage, and when nothing is guaranteed in wrestling, you do not want to wait too long to book a match this good. Because speaking of which, number 6, Cody versus Sting. There are quite a few Cody-related things that could have made this way onto the list due to his choice to live out his days as Diglett on Raw, like never getting a rematch with MJF comes to mind despite mentioning it after Full Gear 2020, but that is something that could theoretically happen if the cards fall in the right way when MJF's contract comes up in a couple of years' time. So maybe that doesn't end up being a missed opportunity. Cody versus Sting though? That probably ain't happening. When Sting sauntered through the snow onto Dynamite, one of the first people he interacted with was Cody Rhodes, planting some sort of seed for a future Cody and Sting thing down the line. Considering how much Cody loves Sting, it would be hard to believe that there wouldn't have been a plan in place at some point. But with Cody gone, it seems pretty unrealistic that Sting's Renaissance run will last the days that Cody could hypothetically rejoin AEW. So this one just leaves us wondering what could have been. Number 5, a Ring of Honor angle. On the March 2nd, 2022 episode of AEW Dynamite, Tony Khan announced that he had purchased Ring of Honor in one of history's most rambly announcements of all time. Just says here, insert TK impression. Don't know what that could possibly be. Parking lot! But then we all sort of just moved on for a bit. We got no major follow-up to this outside of some Ring of Honor titles being featured on AEW television, which hasn't exactly lit the wrestling world on fire. Granted, they did have to work with what they had. Sinclair released everyone under Ring of Honor contract prior to the sale, which certainly hurts the chances of an invasion angle. Plus, they had the New Japan Forbidden Door announcement just a month later. Not only that, but Impact were already doing a Ring of Honor invasion angle with a lot of the big-name talent you would need to successfully do it in AEW. There are many factors at play with Ring of Honor yet to secure a new TV deal, but as far as the weekly AEW programming goes, the acquisition of Ring of Honor hasn't been a plot point in the weekly development of the show, and that's kind of a bummer. Number 4, not booking Paul White versus Marco Stunt. I mean, been the first thing I would have done. It's an easy layup. Touchdown. Going back to my 10 most watched videos on WWE's YouTube channel, go watch that as well please, the thumbnail for this match on YouTube would have been worth it if nothing else. Plus, Tall Paul is Marco's favourite wrestler ever, so probably would have meant a lot to him. Number 3, belt collector Kenny not facing the IWGP champion. Well, this one is hardly AEW's fault, but it does feel like a bit of a miss for the run, doesn't it? When Kenny Omega announced his intentions to be the belt collector, he already held gold in AEW and AAA with his eyes on Impact's top prize, which he also soon won. It felt like this was just the start of Kenny's ambition, but the belt collection just stopped there. Yeah, it's a solid collection, no doubt, but it felt like Kenny was an Infinity Stone or two short of a full gauntlet. Given his history with the promotion and AEW's impending working relationship with them, it seemed like the perfect finale to the belt collector storyline to have Kenny wrestle IWGP World Champion and former Golden Lover Kota Ibushi, but the old Pandorama kept that one from ever being possible, and Kenny's collection ended in Impact. And speaking of, number 2, the Impact deal. Now, it is very important to state that if you look at actual data behind Impact's viewership, it is clear that the deal with AEW helped them quite a bit. Viewership and buy rates and all those super interesting numbers did increase thanks to AEW, but this was definitely not the start of an AEW Impact War rivalry storyline that people envisioned it to be when Kenny Omega and Don Callis drove from Daily's Place to the pandemic Impact Zone. AEW sent a decent amount of stars to Impact, ranging from Private Party to Christian Cage and Frankie Kazarian, but the Impact stars coming back the other way were few and far between outside of regular appearances from the Good Brothers. I get not wanting to change your booking direction to accommodate something to the scope of an invasion angle, but it would have been cool to see Rich Swann, Josh Alexander, Eddie Edwards, or anyone else to mix it up with Rey Fenix, Pac, or Darby Allin. But the biggest missed opportunity here is not utilizing the incredible women over in Impact to bolster your own women's division, which is something they were asking for. And speaking of, number 1, pretty much all of the women's division. The evidence is plentiful that AEW's women's wrestlers will put on some incredible performances when given the chance, whether it be the TBS Championship Tournament, the Owen Hart Cup, Baker vs. Rosa Lights Out, many of the AEW Women's World Championship matches. These matches are top notch, and every time one of them happens, we all go, See, they can do women's wrestling. But just 1 week later, we're back to the old standard of one match a week, or all of the women's segments shoved into the same quarter like the total afterthought they are. Compare how much Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole were featured on TV after their all-out debuts compared to Ruby Soho. Compare how much TV exposure Samoa Joe, Danhausen, Kyle O'Reilly and Jeff Hardy have had since they've come in compared to Toni Storm. It simply isn't good enough. Why did Red Velvet go from playing peacemaker between Layla Hirsch and Chris Stanlander to joining her sworn enemy Jade Cargill? That's a pretty drastic character shift. That kind of thing needs to play out on TV. Hikaru Shida versus Serena Deeb took nearly 8 months to finish their feud and were barely on TV for any of it. There were 2 pay-per-view cycles during that feud and they never once featured on the card. With WWE seemingly flip-flopping on how they feel about the presentation of women's wrestling regularly, you'd think that AEW would take this opportunity to establish itself as a brand, if not the brand, that puts its women's division at the forefront. And remember, they promised us the best women's division on the planet, and they have failed in that. And really, it feels like they don't care that much. What a missed opportunity. And that's our list. What do you think are AEW's biggest missed opportunities? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're at it, click the other videos on screen to watch more PFK lists. I've been Luke Owen. Jam that jam.